Hello, everyone. Welcome to Telling Tales. We make atmospheric tabletop role-playing streams and beam them out into your brains here on Twitch, or perhaps you're watching on YouTube. There are links to both our Twitch and our YouTube below. Why not check them out? You're watching on one, follow on the other. As always, the first thing I'm going to do is introduce our stream manager for the evening, who is John, as always. John, our reliable, trusty Symbaroum stream manager. Hello, John. How you doing?
Hello, Matt. I'm doing all right.
Good.
How are you?
Good. Fantastic. So John is going to be doing his usual duties, which involve manipulating cameras and artwork and chat and all that kind of thing. And don't worry if he pops up; it just means something's gone horribly wrong. Thank you, John. So we've got a bunch of other links down below, as well as to our YouTube and our Twitch. We've got links to all our social media. We've got links to our Discord if you want to join us there and talk about all things telling tales and role-playing, then please do so. We've got a link to our Patreon. If you'd like to support us in exchange for some lovely rewards like character creation videos and access to the patron-only tiers of our Discord, then go check it out. Why not? We also run 3 ongoing weekly series here on Twitch, all of them at 8 o'clock BST every evening. We run Call of Cthulhu on Mondays, Vampire the Masquerade 5th edition on Tuesdays, and this, Symbaroum, on Wednesday evenings. Having said that, we won't be running Vampire and Symbaroum next week because I'm taking a week off. And that means they're fucked because they can't do shit without me, the Game Master. Yeah. We also do monthly one-shots on the first Saturday of every month. We've done Alien and Troika and Merkborg already this year. Merkborg was last Saturday. The VODs of those are up on our YouTube if you want to go check them out. They're a lot of fun. Yeah, and I think that's all my blurb. So without any further ado, let's crack on and bring the players on for this, the second episode of our Symbaroum story, The Bell Tolls for Kastor. And we're going to start with Sam, good old Sam, who plays Ascarai, our Changeling Ranger, Changer Rangeling. So you'd wrapped up the previous story, The Fever of the Hunt. You'd emerged from Davokar after literally months in the darkness there. And what happened next, Sam?
I think we were slightly further east than we'd planned as we were heading to Thistlehold. So we just went to the kind of nearest village called Steadfast, maybe?
Yeah, Steadfast.
Okay. We waited there a while, kind of recovering from our adventures. Anton successfully set himself on fire to remove a bit of corruption, which is always good. And then I think we were still traveling with Semmel, who was a shopkeep from before, and he believes we are part of the Iron Pact, and he is also a part of the Iron Pact, so he is friendly with us. And he received a letter from one of his old friends who lives in Kastor, which is a kind of a nearby town, basically saying that something was kind of amiss, that not exactly specific on the details, but that there'd been like some witch burnings and someone was responsible, but it wasn't who was burnt, and things were strange there. So we basically agreed, since we were heading through Kastor to get to Thistlehold anyway, to travel with Semmel, and made our way there to at least have a look and find out what was going on.
Yes, that's about right. And then, what happened then? Let's bring on Mike. Mike can join us. Mike, who plays Anton, the Theurg of Prios, and all-around flailer. Hi, Mike.
Hi. So, yeah, we arrived in this, what I guess is referred to as a city, but is a bit of a smaller settlement than that, a small town called Kastor. And immediately we knew that something was up because there were some additional guards around the place, like wearing blue, who looked a little bit out of place. We go into the town. We're staying in a place called the Rusty Dragon. The landlord there is an old family friend of Semmel's, and from there we heard about some big news in the town that like 4 of the 7 councilmen in the city been murdered in the last day or two, I think. And the mayor was among them as well. I think was called Salima. I think, I'm not sure about that.
Salima, I think. She was called Salima. That's correct.
And another person who was murdered there, one of the 4 murdered councilmen, was Father Karstak, the first theurg of the Sun Temple. So Anton went off to the Sun Temple to investigate and find out what happened. And he found out a few things there, but then crucially, he found out that Dada, Semmel's companion, friend from way back before, was also murdered in this kind of spree of attacks a few days ago. And we also found out a little bit more about like her background as well, and that she was quite a disturbed and troubled individual.
Yeah, that about covers it.
And also, I guess, like in the witch burnings that happened a few years ago, Balmello was the person who did that.
Yes, Balmello, your former companion.
Yeah.
Both the real Balmello and a fake one were your former companions. So exciting links to your past there. Let's bring on the final player. Let's bring on Chris, who plays Steo, our resident spearman, infantryman, town guard, mercenary, curmudgeon. What did the others get up to as Anton was off to the Sun Temple?
So we did a little bit of sightseeing around the town, and obviously one of the signature features of Kastor is its massive barbarian-built bell tower with a Symbaric bell, if rumors are to be believed. And I believe we first went to take a look. We first went to take a look at the barracks as it was closest, and we noticed more of these guards apart with their little blue ribbons or their little blue highlights on their armor, which Steele believes means they've been dropped in from a different regiment and something might be going on that's not great. But then we went to take a look at the guard tower, which was festooned with these guardsmen, even almost as many as there were around the actual barracks. I mean, Steele didn't notice this, but I should call it out. In both the instances where we left one of these sites of investigation, we spotted an animal looking at us in a spooky manner. So that's one thing. And then we were kind of on our way back when we should happen across some of the leg breakers from Cylindra's Hope in our previous little adventure that we'd kind of thought were dead. So we tailed them and discovered that they had gone into the exact same bar or the exact same establishment that was being run at Cylindra's Hope, except now it is here in Kastor. It's been not magically moved, but administratively moved over by its...
the building is different, but the sign is the same. The 5-2, the gambling den. I would also say that I believe the first place you went was the Ordo Magica Tower.
Of course, I forgot all about them. And in the Ordo Magica Tower, we worked out that the presiding high magic person is a legendary pyromancer from, that Steele would have heard in the past, and that he is maybe close to dying, death's door, very old. But we did get a very friendly acolyte of the order to maybe agree to look over some of our items.
Yeah, not only that, but yeah, the head of the Order Magic here is called Isocles, as you said, is a former renowned pyromancer and war hero, and Pegida was the name of the adept you spoke to, and she said that if you came back tomorrow, she's fairly sure she could get you an appointment with Isocles. And that if he couldn't help you, she was glad to take a look at your artifacts for you, since they had been located in the service of the Ordo Magica. And you just got the impression she just liked the idea as well. Yeah. And I think where we left off precisely was Ascarai, because I think Steo and Semmel had stayed back at some kind of some market stalls while Ascarai went off to tail the leg breakers. And I believe where we left it was Ascarai staring at the 5-2. So I'm happy to pick up there. Now, if Ascarai is going in planning on going in there immediately, then let's whip the other two off the screen and just talk to Sam for a second. But for all I know, Sam may be heading on back to Steo and Semmel first.
I think I would. I'd go and at least mention this to Steo and Semmel. I don't think they were that far behind me, and I don't know if I want to go in there or not yet.
No, they're not. They're not that far away. They're a couple of minutes walk away. So. Let's you know what, actually, let's when John's got a moment, let's pop up the picture of Kastor, the map of Kastor, just so we can kind of reorient ourselves, right? Because I think that's quite important. So you can see Kastor there, that central sort of almost spinal road running north to south. You left Steel and Kastor sort of maybe a fifth of the way down that from the top, near the bell tower, which is kind of the dark circle to the northwest, and you've headed into the slum district, which is that northeast sort of block of housing and sort of shanty town.
Cool. I think I would. Yeah, I'd head back to Steo and Semmel. Can I have a look around to see if I can see any, specifically the cat that I noticed kind of looking at us?
No, you can't see any suspicious animals around.
Okay. In that case, I'll just get back to Steo and Semmel and say, it's not only the leg breakers here. They seem to have just set up again, the same as before.
What? The gang?
Yeah, the gambling den is the same. The 5-2 is here.
Oh, Brias's teeth. You've got to admire Ambrian flipping entrepreneurship. Okay, well, that's probably going to be a cheaper place to get drunk than the hotel.
It's true, although we may be recognized. Not sure if we care.
It might be worthwhile to get recognized. We might be able to get to the bottom of what's going on down here. I'd say we swing back and catch up with Anton.
Yeah, agreed.
Before we decide where we're going to be spending the evening.
That seems perfectly reasonable and a way to get the party all back together again. So you head down that central road back to the Rusty Dragon and head in there. And I'm perfectly happy that Anton has kind of just walked in and is maybe at the bar or getting some food for the evening. Because we are approaching kind of the end of the afternoon, early evening now. Steo and Ascarai, you can do the same. Urfons is already sat at the table, and Semmel will join you. So,
okay. Before we do anything, I'm just going to ask Semmel if I could just speak to him outside, just briefly.
Yeah, that might actually be yeah. He kind of looks over, shrugs, and says, "Of course, Father."
So yeah, I'll just sort of lead him to maybe a quiet place away from everyone where we can't be heard, or outside if there's no background noise. And well, Semmel, I had a conversation with Father Balago at the church, and he gave me some rather unfortunate news, and that is that your companion Dada was working at the church as a sister, and unfortunately, it transpired that she was killed, unfortunately, in the tragic events of a few days ago. I'm so sorry to pass on that news to you.
Semmel kind of takes a pace back as you say that, and just kind of looks confused for a second, and then kind of just looks around. Sort of no real emotion over his face. He looks kind of shocked by it. As a priest, you've had to give this kind of news to people quite frequently, especially back when you were training, and you recognize it. It's just kind of a state beyond, immediate emotion. And he says, I see, Father. Well, that is very... I think I better take a short walk.
You take all the time you need, and I'll reach out for a reassuring hand on his shoulder. Take the time you need, but it is also not helpful to be alone in these times. So please do return and come back to somewhere safe, especially with the trouble that this town has faced in recent memory.
I appreciate that, Father. I won't be too long, and I know the town well. I will be back later. He kind of strides off to the north.
Okay. Well, I'll return to the table, and I guess I will tell everyone what I heard at the church. And I don't think there's any point in me role playing it necessarily with everyone.
No, we've just done the recap. It's fine.
Yeah. So
would either you or Ascarai bring up the green-eyed animal you both saw?
I don't know. Perhaps not, because I noticed it, but it wasn't hugely suspicious, right? Like it wasn't.
No, in a world of magic and dark forest monsters, a green-eyed raven and a green-eyed cat might not seem that. Yeah, no, I appreciate that.
Yeah, I think the same. Like, possible because we only did I only saw it like looking at me, not necessarily didn't follow us.
Yeah, no, I think that's reasonable. So there, you can share all information apart from that. And Earthon's kind of nods, kind of chewing on a bit of bacon, and says, "So, what's next?"
I want to go and we told you about the 10 to 2, didn't we?
5 to 2.
5 to 2. Oh, I actually am keen to go and take a wee look in there if anyone fancies some cheaper pints for the rest of the evening.
I will leave you to enjoy your evening there, Steo. Sounds like a fine establishment, I'm sure. But yeah, I want to make sure that Semmel is okay, and maybe I will return to the church for my own prayers.
He went off on his own, didn't he? Oh, look, I'm going to be honest and maybe a bit callous, but we probably should have tailed him.
Time alone is an important part of the grieving process.
Yeah,
it is natural to, and he knows this place. He knows this place better than us.
Yeah,
but I did urge him to be cautious.
It's not his safety
I want to.
so much. It's not his safety so much I'm worried about. It's his motives. Like, we still don't have a full understanding, and I'm still a little bit spooked by how guarded he's been about some of the details around this place.
I think my worry is that the person who wrote to him seemed to have some kind of understanding of what was going on.
And is now no longer with us.
Yeah, and although it sounds like Father Balago believes this was just a coincidence, you have to wonder whether it really was, considering that letter. And at the same time, perhaps that puts Semmel and maybe even us in some kind of danger.
Yeah, which is why I think a trip to the 5 to 2 might be a good idea. Might get some different information. And Anton, I would encourage you to stick with us, just because I'm already concerned about Semmel wandering off alone. I don't want to have to clean up 2 bodies tomorrow.
I wonder if we might ask the bartender here about the guards we see around town. Surely they must have some knowledge of who they are.
Let me do that. I'll have. I am familiar both with guarding and with the inside of pubs. I think this is in my wheelhouse.
Sure. Yeah. So, do you want to wander over to the bar and talk to Ramigal? Is the name of the innkeeper?
I will do so under the auspices of buying another round, and
I'll certainly give you a bonus to your persuasion.
So another set of those, please. That's very nice ale.
Oh well, thank you. It's good to have a compliment from travelled folk such as yourself.
Yeah, we don't often get to dine in such fine establishments. Been camping quite a lot the last time. The We were walking around town today. We noticed this seems, as an ex-guardsman myself, there seems to be a second detachment of guards around.
Why don't you give me a persuasion roll? It's persuasion, not persuade, right? Is it?
It's persuasive, actually. So
persuasive, the third option. A persuasive roll at +2, please.
That's still a 9, everyone, and I got an 11.
Ramagal looks a little reticent to talk about that, and just kind of says, "Oh, I don't know anything about that."
Quite. Okay. Well, I'll pay for my pints after some minor small talk.
Hey, getting a response like that is almost like getting another kind of answer, isn't it?
Yeah. It's like no useful information, but no useful information.
I think I'll just approach Ramagol as well and just ask him to keep an eye out for Semmel because they know each other, I guess.
Ramagal was a family friend to his parents, apparently.
Yeah, so I'll just I won't mention the details, but I'll just ask him to keep an eye
out. He'll nod and says, "Oh, of course. Is everything all right?"
I think Semmel has just had some news which is probably quite upsetting at this time, and I will leave it up to him to tell you that news if he so wishes. But yes, as myself and my companions might be venturing out for the evening, it would be good if someone here was aware that he's perhaps not in the best frame of mind.
Oh, certainly, yes. I'll keep an eye out. Don't worry. Okay, so it sounds like the group here, and you know what, Earthons is going to volunteer to stay behind as well because I can't be bothered remembering he exists. In every scene, it's fine. So he says he's going to wait here, get some rest, and he'll keep an eye out for Semmel as well.
Cool. Okay, well, you know precisely where it is, Ascarai. Do you want to lead on?
Sure. It's in the rough part of town, but you should be fine.
I'm surprised this town has more than one part. It's not all that big.
So, you head back up north again, back to the slum district, past the smoking ruins of the Sun Temple, and on into the mass of shanty houses, hovels, and large tumble-down buildings converted into kind of mass apartments that mark out the slum district of Kastor. You make your way through the streets. It seems much more busy than when you were first here, Ascarai. Kind of a lot more individuals just on the streets, some of them obviously sleeping there. And you quite quickly find yourself in front of the 5-2, as Ascarai described. Kind of a large building, but looking fairly tumble down, and with the sign from Cylinder's Hope hung over the door.
What time is it?
Going in and out. It's kind of mid-evening time, so maybe 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, that kind of time.
Okay. I don't understand how they got set up so fast. It's just
many strange things come out of Davokar, even efficient publicians. You get a pint?
So the three of you stride on in. Inside it does look like it's been there for 2 weeks, to be fair. There's, most of the seating is barrels or boxes. The tables are, big kind of like slabs of wood on top of barrels and boxes. And there's obviously some people who've been hired out to be kind of running games for people and things like that. But equally, there's others just playing their own games of chance and the like. The bar is one long plank on top of several barrels. And behind it are some kegs that are being tapped by, there's a goblin running along tapping out drinks. And sporadically dotted around are a number of barbarians who look fairly familiar to you and as members of the leg breakers. One or two of them kind of look at you as well and kind of narrow their eyes as they process this information. Behind the bar stands Silvercheek, as you've met her before, a middle-aged woman. Yeah, it's kind of covered in a cloak and relatively thick leather armor. One entire side of her face covered with a reflective silver mask. Her crossbow is hanging by the bar.
I will kind of raise the hand to greet her.
She looks over, kind of raises an eyebrow in mild surprise, and says, fellow veterans of the Battle of Cylindra's Hope.
Very impressed at how quickly you got set up here. This is incredible.
You'd be surprised how many places I've run the 5-2.
I think we'll try some of your fare this evening, if you don't mind.
First one's half price. She slides truly filthy looking liquor across the bar to you know, only really a step up from the moonshine she was running back at Cylindra's Hope. And
any step
as
up.
she kind of tosses a couple of mugs for the goblin to start scrubbing in a tub full of fairly dirty looking water, she leans back on the bar as you all drink, presumably in very different ways. I can't imagine Anton being like, yeah. But she leans on the bar and says, what brings you to Kastor?
Passing through, mostly.
You remember the shopkeep? Oh God, I forgot his name again. You remember the shopkeep, Semmel?
Aye.
He was traveling with us, and he had some business here, so it's kind of on the way back to Thistlehold. So we figured we'd put a dog leg in, see the sights. It's a weird time to be arriving in town, though, by the look of it.
We certainly seem to be bringing the luck of Davakar out with us. She reaches under the bar for a crossbow bolt and starts kind of picking her teeth with it. What have you been able to figure out so far?
I'm spooked by all these. Seems like there's two separate detachments of guards here, and they don't seem to be on the same wavelength.
Could you give me a persuasive roll at +3, please?
Oh my goodness, lads, it's not going to get any better. I need someone else to make these rolls.
It's literally getting better.
Yeah, that's just... Okay, here we go. I need a 10. A 5! I did it!
There you go. It's not going to get it's not going to get any better, so she doesn't tell you anything. She nods and says, aye. Well, that would be Captain Tredella's lot, the Blue Company.
Blue Company. Not from round here, I assume.
Mercenaries.
Oh, that's worse.
Usually down south. Get involved in ducal spats. Clearly someone's throwing some money around.
Yeah, that's a worrying outcome. Things might get more violent before they get better.
When did they arrive?
About a week ago, maybe. But they didn't really start to make their presence overly known until 2 days ago.
When were all the murders?
2 days ago.
Well, that's interesting.
Very interesting and probably completely non-suspicious. God.
I encourage you, as I am doing, to be a cockroach on the stone floor as much as possible. You don't want to get caught up in these little gatherings of ne'er-do-wells and traitors that Town Hall is bringing in.
Yeah. That said, there's never a better time to make a bit of coin, is there? As well we both know.
As long as you don't mind the prospect of arrest. Just pick the right side.
Yeah.
She kind of sees someone else, indicating the need for a drink further down the bar, and gives you all a nod and wanders down.
Can I have a quick survey of the surrounds, or can I see that we're being kind of tailed, or is anyone giving us the eye?
Well, yeah, sure. Why just give me a vigilant roll at. Well, just give me a vigilant roll and tell me if it hits -1 or either -1 or -5.
I got a -1, so I needed an 8 and I got a 7.
Okay, you don't notice any person watching you, but there's definitely there's a kind of old. Where at some point in the past, this place had maybe a fancy kind of like balcony running along one side of the wall, and there is a fairly large rat sat on the balcony, just watching you with an odd intensity.
I'm in the interest of not having 3 separate characters experience this phenomenon but not communicate it, I'm going to find an excuse to communicate it. Oh, check out that old balcony. This must have been quite nice back in the day. And back in the day can't have been all that long ago, can it?
If anyone is going to look up at the balcony, they can go ahead and try and make a vigilant roll at -5. In fact, well, no, Anton and Asker, I've already seen a weird-looking, like an animal with weird green eyes. So I'll just make that a -2, actually.
I make it. I needed 13. I rolled 5.
I also made it. I got an 8 out of it.
Both of you aware that rat has oddly piercing green eyes.
So I think at this point, I'm just going to, without saying anything, just look at Steo and look at Askerite and watch if they're looking at the rat or if they're looking at the balcony.
Sure.
And I'm going to drag this on for as long as possible.
Asker, I'm definitely looking at the rat, and I might say under my breath, like, that's not the first animal that has been watching us today.
I saw a crow, an unusual crow with green eyes, watching me as I left the church earlier.
We had a cat by the bell tower.
Anton, you have Ritualist, right?
Yep.
Can you give me a cunning roll, please?
My cunning isn't great. I need 11. I rolled a 10.
It occurs to you, you are aware, you certainly don't know it yourself, but you are aware of a mystical power that is relatively frequently taught among different schools of mysticism, that is called Borrow Beast. And when certain users of it make use of this to kind of basically like temporarily cause animals, usually they use them as spies. Quite frequently, said beasts will take on certain physical traits of the mystic using the ritual, at least while it's active.
Okay. Well, at this point, I'm just gonna kick Steo and Askar under the table, so to divert their attention away from staring at this thing, which is possibly watching us, and I will.
I'm looking at the balcony, lads.
I just love architecture, mate.
I'm just a big fan of interior design.
Okay, so we might be being watched, possibly by someone with green eyes.
I think it's some kind of magic.
It's almost certainly. Matt, is this practiced more by people who might be associated with the Ordo Magica, or
you know what I'll look like? My gut feel is that it's going to be witches, right? It feels like
actually, because I've been researching this.
It's a witch thing, yeah.
Yeah.
Borrow. Oh, it's not. Is it? Maybe it's not in the core book.
I know it is because I remember researching this like last week.
Oh, it's a ritual as well. Sorry, not
Yeah.
not a power. Let me.
You could say
I
it's a
do
ritual.
believe Chris, but I am compelled to double check myself. Yes, the tradition of it is witchcraft.
Okay.
But mystics frequently borrow
Yeah,
from other
yeah.
schools of mysticism.
So I think Silvercheek is right. That we need to keep a very low profile in this town.
Or we leave.
We can leave.
Hmm. Do you know if these
we do
creatures
have actually. This is a great time to have a chat with you guys. So, the Ordo Magica. I told you about the Flameomancer, the Pyromancer of phenomenal acclaim, who has set his last stand here and is teaching at the academy. But there is one of his acolytes has offered to maybe try and get us an audience with him, which would be like I'm going to be delighted to even get a chance to speak with the man. But also they might take a look at some of the items we have. And I would suggest that wouldn't be all of the items we have, just out of an abundance of caution.
I'd really like to understand that hand as much as anything.
I was going to suggest and whatever else we have that's worth or whatever else we feel like it would be prudent to get some answers on. And Tom, yeah. I don't know where I think you picked up the book and I don't know where it falls on the spectrum, but I leave that to your best judgment.
I feel like taking it back to Thistlehold and showing it to the Ordo Magica there might be more prudent, perhaps, just because we have more of a relationship with those people, and there's a semblance of trust there, perhaps.
I would be a little concerned that they might try and scalp us of it, though. They have been any group that sends us away for a 3-month deployment in the most dangerous forest in the lands on a shilling a day probably does not have our best interests at heart, is it?
Well, there's nothing wrong with getting it priced here and then getting it priced at Thistlehold and using that as a bargaining point. So yeah.
I just, like I said, I don't know exactly where you use your own judgment. I'm not steering you one way or the other. But I think that was one of the ones I definitely had a question mark on. And I don't think we want to talk to the throwing axes either. But I would like them to take a look at the spear. It's probably not possessed. But I mean, I've been acting normal. I haven't caught fire or anything, have I?
Yeah. I think I'll have them take a look at the cloak as well, just in case, since I'm wearing it at times.
So the cloak, the hand, and Anton will flip a coin regarding the book, maybe.
I'll let them have a look at the codex.
Yeah.
As this conversation has gone on, 5 to 2 has become kind of more raucous as the evening passes. You know, you're maybe an hour before midnight now. There are a lot of people here getting very drunk, and some scuffles are breaking out as people inevitably start losing at games, at gambling. The leg breakers step in fairly quickly and somewhat ruthlessly. And it's never breaking out into an all-out riot, but it's certainly very rambunctious.
Shall we see if we have a full complement back at the barn?
Yeah, feeling that this evening is going to get substantially worse at some point in the near future, and I think it's time for me to make my leave at least.
Okay, so the three of you exit the 5 to 2. Silvercheek kind of with a hand gesture waving you good evening, and you stride through the slum district again, very, very, very full as it is, and out onto that main north-south road. And as you walk south back towards the Rusty Dragon, why don't we have a vigilant roll from you all, Chris and Sam and Mike? And I think it's quite a difficult one. I think it isn't one you would necessarily easily make. So let's have a vigilant roll at -4.
Oof.
Oh, I missed by 1. You did 9, got 10.
No
I made
chance.
Got a 3.
Oh,
Askarai, you can't help but notice, and it's something that occurs to you after seeing how full the slum district was. As you walk through Kastor in the day, there are plenty of kind of, beggars and vagrants and people who look generally dispossessed wandering around, as there is in any large Ambrian city. There are none outside the slum district at night.
So in the slum district, there are people, and outside there are.
Mm-hmm. I'll give you this one for. You know what? Well, you know what? Take a cunning roll, and sadly, because you're a changeling, I'll give you a +4 to it.
Okay. I got a 9, which makes it.
You've been in plenty of places where undesirables are moved to a certain district at night by the guard.
Okay. Yeah.
Kastor is no different, it seems.
I think the residents here, at least the ones the guards don't like, are encouraged to stay out of the main part of town.
well, let's add an inch to our step so we can get securely into the safety of the hotel.
As you walk that north to south road, you pass the Sun Temple. You see that the annex has kind of finally stopped smoking. The column of smoke has dwindled to almost nothing. And as you make it past there, all of you, I think, rather safely hear
Turn and look.
Semmel is lurking near that Sun Temple annex, kind of behind one wall, which is still mostly in place. He kind of beckons you over to him.
Okay.
Yeah, head over.
Look. Maybe we can't help Dada now, as it were, but we can look into what she was looking into, whatever was troubling her, and it seems maybe it's linked to the trouble in the town. There's no one guarding this. We can have a look.
Semmel, are you suggesting that we enter into the church and?
Well, not the church. This annex. The doors have all burned away. We can just take a look.
Why is there no one guarding it when there are 20 guards to the person?
Semmel, you are struggling with the death of someone who meant a great deal to you, and there is a time to get answers for it, but right now is not that time, and this is not the way to do that.
I will kind of, if I can, kind of to ask Rai to the side and go, maybe right now is not the best time, but maybe 15 minutes might be a good idea.
I think right now. I think perhaps there are no guards because guards are lazy and wander off to get a drink, or if we go now, this.
Oh,
Yeah, don't deny it.
I'm not denying it. I'm also not denying the fact that you shouldn't take that kind of thing for granted. Not a very safe thing to be doing. Let's case the joint properly. Let's not just walk in while the door's unguarded. Come on, let's go back and get a drink and think about this.
We might not get another chance.
We've got the whole night. It's barely midnight.
Perhaps in 10 minutes they'll be guarded.
Anton, these two are having a conversation with each other. So you're the one noticing that Semmel is kind of creeping through one of the open doors on the side of the.
I'm dragging him back. I'm Semmel. I will visit the church tomorrow, and I will explore this annex, and I will look into it more for you. But we are not doing this right now.
He kind of is dragged back a bit with you and sort of nods a bit slightly and then jerks hard suddenly away from your grasp. Why don't you give me a competing strong versus strong roll against Semmel? I'll just say that his strong is actually it's probably a bit lower. It's probably like 8. which I think would be a +2 to your strong. So
Yeah, I rolled 14, so
yeah, he breaks loose of your grasp and kind of dashes through the doorway to the inside.
oh, curse that man! Right, I'm following him in.
Sick.
I'm also going in.
I am going to go and case the joint properly, not going
Have
in,
a walk round,
going
yeah,
away,
sure.
have a walk around and verify.
Okay, that's good. So let's do that first, right? Let's have a look at what Steo can make out there. Why don't you give me a vigilant roll, Steo?
I fail. Needed a 9, got a 16.
It looks to you like a burned out building. There's no extra information you can readily tell from kind of a pace around the perimeter of it. What certainly I can tell you don't seem to see any guards, but then you're not overly confident in your approach anyway.
So this street is like deserted. There's not even.
There's quite a few people still walking around on it. It's only it's an app from. There's a couple of people walking around, but they're deliberately paying no mind to anyone else.
Okay, so I'm actually going to go and stake the place out rather than go in with these guys because I want to be separate from that.
Yeah, you want to kind of keep an eye on.
Yeah. So
sure.
I'll kind of go and make myself look conspicuously bored, like maybe a private guard
leaning against a wall or
leaning against
something.
exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, on the inside. So you are now inside the former Sun Temple Annex. Most of the wooden inner walls have been incinerated. So basically, what you're in is a largish, gutted out stone building. Where most of the wooden areas have been burned up. The floor itself was stone, so kind of nothing has collapsed inwards to a basement or anything. But the roof is almost completely gone, and as I say, the inner walls are wrecked completely. Although the wooden paneling of them is wrecked completely. The only real stuff to see is there's a stone hearth against one of the walls. There's kind of the twisted and burned up remains of kind of furniture and things like that. And there are what appear to be the scorched remains of 4 bodies lying on the ground.
What was the exact story of how this happened again? Wasn't it burnt from the outside by like
the priest, whose name is Belago, said that there were sounds of conflict from inside, and when they went out with some armed kind of novices, they found that there were sounds of conflict from inside, but they also saw some kind of shady-looking cloaked individuals who, at the sight of them, threw kind of fantasy Molotov cocktails, essentially, which would just be Molotov cocktails, at the building and then fled. So it sounds like there were sounds of conflict inside, and then when the novices came out, the people on the outside, their steos, decided to just torch the place.
Okay.
What's Semmel doing? Because he rushed in first.
He's kind of dashed over to the bodies and is kind of like looking around, sort of tapping his lip, and he's not looking like he's on the verge of a breakdown or anything, but he's looking very intent, like he's found a purpose,
I'm gonna look over at Ascarai and see how he's reacting. Look at his facial expressions. I guess I'm going to shake my head as well, as if to say, like, this is not good. We need to get out of here.
I would just note on the side, I don't think you'll be able to see Ascarai's facial expressions.
Very true. Very true. Ascarai is like looking around the place generally when he first gets in. Then we'll probably head towards the bodies afterwards.
Sure. It seems like Anton is kind of standing back a bit and is just looking at the people involved in this at the moment. Ascarai, I'd make you make a vigilant roll for the surroundings, but there are barely any surroundings. You know, the place has been torched. However, the bodies are worth a vigilant roll.
Okay. Do my best. I need 15 space visuals. I got a 14. Nice.
Okay, so the first thing you notice about these bodies, I mean, it's obvious that they're very, very badly burned up. You are 99% sure one of these individuals was wearing priestly robes. The other 3 were wearing leather armor.
Leather armor. Okay. In the story we've been told is that not necessarily that no one else died, but we've only been told that the first Theurg and Dada died in this fire. Is that right?
I'm not entirely sure that was the story, that only they died. I think it was assumed that some of their assailants also died in the conflagration.
Okay. Fair enough. I'll say this, Santa. There's one priest here. The rest are in armor.
So I'll look around for any signs of, like, I guess, a 5th body that's maybe been moved or like something like that. Because I'm guessing that a sister of the Church of Prios wouldn't wear leather armor.
No, would wear robes.
Yeah.
I mean, a sister of Prios is essentially just a female priest of Prios. So
yeah.
It's a big open area. You can absolutely give me, give me a. It's very badly burned, but at the same time, anything being moved would have disturbed. Like every footstep of yours scuffs aside charcoal off the floor. You know, kind of a layer of charcoal dust and ash. So why don't you give me a vigilant +5? I think it's
I make it. Rolled a 9.
You, unless someone has done it exquisitely carefully, there was no other body in here. What's also notable is that there aren't any footsteps in this, which presumably means the guards have not been here.
Okay. Well, I'll relay that to Ascarai. And I'll look up, because did you say that the ceiling's burnt away as well? So we're like to the open air.
There's elements of it, like a couple of beams have survived, but the moonlight is shining down.
Is there any sign of like a animal with green eyes watching us right now?
No, not you look around and you can't see anything right now. No.
Yeah. Okay. Samuel, I think that there is stuff that we could learn about this place, but it is too dark to see, and it is not the right time to be here. I really think that we should go.
He rummages in his jerkin, gets out a kind of a large tin, which he opens. He clicks something, and a magnesium strip flares to life, which he throws on the floor and says, "Light, Father. Please, we are here."
You might hear an audible sigh from quite some distance away.
You can see it from outside, Theo, for sure.
Yeah, I imagine.
I'm not sure.
Well, can we see anything more now that there's light in this place?
There's nothing extra, but if you wanted to examine the bodies more carefully, you can certainly do so.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I'll go and examine the first Theurg's body.
Well, I mean, it was priestly robes. You're not sure if it was the first Theurg.
Sure.
But why don't you give me a cunning roll, being as you've got Medicus? There's a roll you could make on that the one in robes, and a roll on the others, and there's also a general vigilant roll that can be made.
Okay, well, I don't make the first one, so I
Sure.
rolled 15, so that's not good enough for the robe
for the
court.
cunning. There is a vigilant roll with Medicus that you can make on the other bodies as well. If you're also examining those, then you can make that.
And I've rolled a 3 there, and I needed 13, so that's
okay.
Good.
Nice.
Every one of the leather armored bodies was stabbed repeatedly, probably with daggers.
Okay.
And I'd say, Askarai, are you kind of looking over the bodies as well? You seem most likely to make the pure mid-vigilant roll.
I'd like to try and, I mean, maybe I can't do this because it fell under the medicus roll, but I'd like to try and find out if the priestly robe body is male or female. That is a check I can make.
According to the rulebook, that is a medicus roll.
Okay,
so
fair enough.
Would you with a horribly burned body, you could imagine maybe the case.
Yeah.
But if you want to do the general vigilant roll, that'd be good. And you know what? I think both of you can do it. Both of you give me a vigilant roll if you're looking at the bodies of -5.
Okay. I need a 10.
I made it.
Fail.
I build a 3.
Okay.
Nice.
You can't tell anything more about these bodies. Steo.
Well, didn't Anton say he made it? Or am I making that up?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Did you say you made it?
Yeah,
there you go. Another piece of information for you, although you're not in... It's kind of a slightly vague piece of information and a somewhat disturbing one. These individuals were either very extremely facially deformed, monstrous looking, or they were wearing masks made to look monstrous and disturbing. Kind of horns protruding from them and it's kind of a scaly effect. But they're so badly burnt that you literally cannot tell whether it is a mask that has fused to their face or whether it was fused to their face before they were burned, or whether these are their faces. It is, you can't tell. But all three of them seem to have that.
Try us. Matt, would it be unusual in the world that we're in for like a corpse to lay like unmoved for this amount of time after death?
It depends how busy the guards are and how much they care. One would imagine that the high theurg of the town being murdered would, yes, be something that would be seen fairly quickly, especially in a place that seems to have so many guards. So yes, it is unusual.
Yeah.
Steo, outside. You are standing, watching around. There's no sign of guards, no sign of any significant people disturbing you. As you kind of watch a stray dog kind of roaming down the street in your general direction, sniffing around a bit, and then maybe about 20 feet away from you, becoming a little more direct in its approach, pacing to about 10 feet away from you and looking at you rather levelly with piercing green eyes.
The same dog.
I don't know if it's the same dog. Probably not, being as there hasn't been a dog up until now. So I would imagine it's not the same dog. Because there is no dog to be the same of. There's been a cat, a crow, and a rat.
But this one, there is a person now with green eyes, or who is... So what has come up to me?
A dog.
A dog with green...
With piercing green eyes.
With piercing green eyes. Okay, yes. I'm on the same table. I'm gonna give it a nod and retain my position.
As you watch the dog's eyes blur over until they're no longer green, they're a rather more usual kind of amberish brown. The dog walks up to you, kind of sniffs your hand happily, and then wanders off.
Okay. Well, the witch knows we're here. I say to no one in particular.
Semmel is kind of been leaning over the individual in the robes and is kind of looking around and says, I am not trained as you are, Father, but I just don't think this is Dada.
It certainly seems either Dada or the first theurg.
Dada never went anywhere without her daggers.
Daggers?
Yes, she had a rough upbringing. He's kind of half lifting the burnt corpse, which is crumbling slightly, to look for daggers, like in the belt or the remains of daggers.
God. Well, then there is everything here is not as it seems. But we cannot stay here all night, Semmel. We must go. Is it possible to roll persuasion to try and get him to?
Yeah, sure.
out
And
of here?
I think it's fairly reasonable now. You feel like you've investigated it. So just straight up give me a straight persuasion roll.
Okay, I make it. I rolled a 5 and I needed 10.
He nods and kind of like brushes the charcoal remains of the robed individual off his hands, and stands up and says, "Well, I think this is at least more information."
I agree, but we should head home quickly.
Steo, your 3 companions walk out from the burned Sun Temple Annex.
I will make towards the bar and hope that they join up with me.
Yep.
I mean, you could just join them. They walk out in front of you.
Yeah, but you got to case the joint. Like, it's 2 separate groups. You don't want to show any orbital satellites that we've rejoined. Just do it right or don't do it.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I assume we join up, and on the way back, I'll kind of have a chat. It's like, I met a very interesting dog while you were around in there. Green eyes, and intense look on it. Gave it a little nod, sent it on its way.
Semmel looks a bit confused.
There's many examples of interesting fauna around these parts.
Is it flora or fauna? It's fauna.
It's fine. Semmel just looks confused by this conversation.
We'll fill Steo in on what we've seen. So there were 4 corpses in there. One of them belonged to a member of the church. The other 3 were in leather armor, stabbed repeatedly. The person in the robes, we don't know whether that was the first Theurg, Kastor, or whether that was Dada. But Semmel here believes that it was not Dada, as the corpse was not to be found with her daggers, which apparently she took with her everywhere.
So just, I mean, you've obviously thought this yourself, but the obvious question is, do you think Dada dispatched those assailants?
I did wonder that, but then I thought, well, I can go back tomorrow to speak to Father Belago and find out exactly what happened there, because this does not add up. He told me that she had died in the fighting, but it looked like that scene had barely been disturbed by anyone else. So I want to know how he came to know.
It sounds like there might be a lot of information that we are not being told, or information that's being fed to us specifically. So as the lady of the bar mentioned earlier, wise words to make sure we pick the right side in whatever little power play is developing here.
I will return to the church tomorrow. I want to explore the tombs underneath, where apparently Dada spent considerable time. I'll go alone. It won't arouse any suspicion if I do that. I can speak to Father Belago while I'm there. We must remember that we are being watched almost everywhere we go in this town.
Well, we'll take a run out to the Ordo Magic at the same time, I reckon. Ascarai?
Yeah.
Unless you have another idea.
Well, I think perhaps first thing we should let them have a look at these items and see what they come up with. But maybe later we could try to find out more about this mercenary guard in town. It seems way too much of a coincidence for them to arrive so shortly before all these murders.
Oh, I am almost willing to bet some nice gold coins that it has got no coincidence about it at all, Ascarai. But we should be careful about the inquiries we make.
Agreed. Semmel, Is there anywhere you think Dada may go, or anyone she might know if she were still with us?
When I lived here, I was more or less her only friend, really. Other than Garala, but Garala has been dead for 3 years.
Yeah.
You're back at the Rusty Dragon at this point, right? And you're kind of conversing over a table as kind of, the innkeeper's locked up, but he's still happy to hand out food and drink. And he leans forward and says, I just have the distinct feeling that cannot have been her.
Well, of all of us, you would know best, Emma. And certainly one of the priests was not there.
Earlier, I realized that you may be withholding some elements of our little investigation from me because you feel that I am traumatized by the death of a childhood friend, but perhaps there are things I can help with. Look, earlier you spoke of strange animals. What strange animals are in Kastor?
Well, it's not the animals themselves that are strange, but they appear to be following us due to some kind of spell, keeping an eye on us. We have green eyes who were followed at the bell tower, at the church earlier, and again.
Some kind of mystic ritual? Green eyes? What?
It's a fairly common practice amongst witch folk, inhabiting the eyes of animals, birds.
Semmel kind of almost leaps forward at the table at this and grasps your arm, Anton, somewhat hard, and says, Father, Dada, she has knowledge of mystic things, and her eyes are green.
Oh. Well, then there is perhaps a reason to believe that she may still live.
2 reasons, 2.5 if you count the stab wounds.
We've been seen by those green-eyed animals with Semmel, right? Like in Rat that saw us in the bar just now was, he was there as well. Okay.
Oh no, he was at the 5 to 2. Yeah.
Okay.
Was he?
No, he wasn't.
No, he wasn't.
He was.
He was with us at the bell
The
tower,
cat
right?
would have seen. The cat would have seen for sure. Yeah.
Okay.
With us in the day.
I do not know what more that there is to discuss here tonight, but we have a lot to be thinking about before tomorrow.
Semmel nods and says, "Yes, of course." The general group of you head up for the evening, back up to the second floor of the Rusty Dragon, where you share a room. You walk past the other room on the floor, still locked up, and into your own, where Irfon's is already kind of like flopped over onto one of the beds, snoring loudly.
Is Semmel sharing the room with us, is he?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm going to be staying awake.
Okay.
And then when I'm sure everyone else is asleep, I'm going to try and ask our phones to maybe keep a watch.
I mean, Irfon's is asleep.
Yeah, but that's later. I'm going to try and stay awake a good couple of hours and then watch and make sure Semmel isn't about to pull a fast one, and then try and get Irfans to take the watch.
Okay. Yeah, you wait until you think everyone else is asleep. Give me a persuasive roll at -5 to persuade Irfans to stay up and keep watch.
Yeah, this is 3 or under, ladies and gentlemen. I believe in me. Do you?
Oh yes.
Well, you're a fool.
All you get from Irfans is an increase in snoring and a few swear words.
Well, if he hasn't made his attempt by now, he's probably not going to try and screw us over, and he doesn't have access to alarm clock technology. So I will go to sleep.
Sure. So you all wake up in the morning. You are all in the room, and there are rather pleasant smells of cooking coming from below. You descend for your breakfast at the Rusty Dragon. It's rather nice, and yeah. The day is new. You can hear the town bustling again outside.
Oh, you get used to this breakfast thing, couldn't you? I haven't had breakfast in months.
Yeah, I'll have a bit of
Haven't
breakfast.
eaten in months.
Breakfast.
By definition, you must have had breakfast if you've eaten.
Oh, I hate you so much. We will take this
in
offline.
the name,
We will take
Chris.
this offline, sir. Yeah, so I suppose we will finish up the first meal of the day, and shall we execute the plan?
The
then?
one that finishes some kind of period of not eating when you're asleep.
We're off topic.
The end. You're having your end starve.
Fair.
Yeah. Clip that shit. So yeah, what's the plan? What's the plan, folks? Bold adventurers.
I'm going to go to the church.
Yeah.
And I think me and Askar are going to go to Auto Magica.
Okay.
Yeah, I will give Steer and Askarai the codex to take.
No, the codex is so you want the codex looked at then, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. So
I
we're going
thought
with the
when
codex.
you were having that discussion, I was mildly concerned that there was a bit of confusion over what book you were talking about. Because I believe Anton, when he refers to the Codex, is referring to the thing he recovered from the Tomb of Dying Dreams.
Yeah, I was.
Whereas I felt that some other people may have been discussing the heretical book with the letter pertaining to the Dark Lords that you found at Cylinder's Hope.
Yeah, I think we're sitting on the letter to the Dark Lord was my understanding.
Okay.
Yeah.
But we'll have this discussion with Anton. Like, it's if he hands over the heretical text, I'll be like, wait a second. Not
No,
really the right
I think
people.
Anton was intending to hand over the Codex. Is that right?
Yeah, I was. But yeah, I'm more than happy to offload a heretical text as well. Like, not having that on my person seems great. So
Yeah, let's maybe store that, but I'm sure as heck not handing it over to anyone until we're back in Thistlehold.
Sure.
I'd also ask Erfons, do you want us to take in your...
He'll come with you.
Okay.
He's happy to come with you and bring those throwing axes to have the once over at the order.
So we're just going to do the whole lot then. Oh, fair enough.
Doesn't seem like there's anything we're holding back on, does there? Because yours didn't need looking at, Steo. It's just a big trunk of cash.
Yes.
So you don't want to get that out and go,
Not going to be
this?
flashing that around. Yeah.
Oh, this is dangerous, sir. The Order Magica will have to take care of this for you.
I just like the idea of Steo going in and just like shaking it around. What is it? What does it do?
It's the cursed Wonga of Bazooka.
What ancestral value does this possess to the people of the past? Perhaps it was a ritual item. It's a bit of a joke for all you archaeologists out there. So in the morning, Anton, Semmel is very much insisting on coming with you, Anton.
Well, I don't think that, like, I'm going to spin him a yarn here and say that I don't think that he would be allowed entry to certain parts of the church.
You really don't want Semmel, the experienced local NPC, with you at any point.
No, I'm not saying I don't want him with me, but I just like he can wait outside the church. But like, I don't think that he's going to get into the church, right?
He kind of squares up to you a bit and says, "Look, Father, I know you have good intentions, but I know my way around Kastor, and people go into the catacombs all the time." It's the same as a graveyard, Father. Everyone goes into the catacombs to lay wreaths and flowers for their relatives.
Man, he just sent you to priest school. You just got seminaried.
No, I mean, catacombs in certain places would be. You weren't sure what these were. Like in many places, catacombs would be only for the kind of the rich and powerful and things like that. Clearly not in the case of Kastor.
Okay. Fine, Semmel.
And I can navigate them a touch better than someone who has not been there before, I warrant.
That is true. That is all valid. I retract my my advice.
He's clearly not kind of mad at you, but not in a particularly good mood with you either, and kind of walks out of the inn quite righteously, having said his piece.
Okay.
Towards the temple, not just fucking off like in a random direction.
I'll give.
I'll go after
him. So we're getting chants of priest fight from the chat. Leads me to confusion that the chat thinks Semmel is also a priest, but we'll hey, that's not the priest fight we're waiting for, right? The priest fight we're waiting for is back in Thistlehold.
Yeah. Fair, actually. 20 bucks.
So yeah, you know what? We're gonna deal with the Ordo Magica adventure first, I think. So, Mike, why don't you fuck off, friend? Do we want to keep this this view here, or shall we? I think the general consensus is that we hate this view, right? So shall we switch to this? Yeah, that's
I like
good.
that better.
That's good shit. Okay, so you walk through the streets of the town along with Earthlons. You make your way to the Ordo Magica, which, if we remember, was kind of in the northwest of the town in a fairly largish open circular square. Circular square, you know what I mean?
A squared circle, if you will.
A squared circle. Yeah, that's no. And you emerge out into the kind of courtyard. Yeah, a large courtyard, circular courtyard. I'm getting stuck on it. You walk over to the Ordo Magica Tower. There is no one kind of standing outside the door, and the door is shut.
Give it a knock.
Inside, after 10 seconds or so, you hear kind of a slight banging noise as if someone is kind of like dashing through a doorway to try and get to the door. And then it swings open. And Pegida is there, sort of a little bit out of breath, and saying, "Sorry, I was rather busy with a small experiment." Oh, yes, from yesterday.
Yes,
oh, and another companion. That's fine. Earthons wasn't with you yesterday. I remembered that. She kind of waves you in to the hallway. She's certainly not. It's definitely. I mean, the Thistlehold Order Magica is not grand per se. It's just big, because it is rather ramshackle as the rest of Thistlehold is. This tower of the Order Magica is certainly smaller, but maybe a little bit nicer, a little bit more polished, and with fewer spiders in the corners. She waves you in. There is what looks to be a large set of stairs leading upwards that looks to be kind of maybe the tower itself is like a square tower, not a circle. And the stairs seem to come up and around the outside, perhaps, if you see what I mean, kind of like a spiral, but with the angles there. And she sort of gestures to that and says, "Yes, Master Isocles will, I think, be able to spend some time with you, and then we'll see about the artifacts. But if he's, I will look at them if necessary."
Thank you.
much appreciated. Yes.
She gestures for you to head up, and she'll walk along behind you.
I am quite visibly quite excited by this. Bit of a war hero.
Sure. You go up, and there's only 4 floors on this tower, as you saw from the outside, but it's quite large. And as you go up around, you pass kind of quite a numerous number of rooms, some of which have open doors, some of which are shut. Glimpses inside them show things like there are some with novices working away at various tasks, some of them housework, some of them obviously a bit more studious, and pass a couple of open with Ordo servants or mages of a higher level who are tinkering away on things inside and shoot glances at you, or maybe slightly suspicious glances as you move past.
Sardonically, I will mention to Askrai as we go past. It's like it's nice to be in an Ordo Magica building where everyone's still alive, isn't it?
Yeah, and perhaps more friendly than in the other one.
A voice comes from just higher up the stairs from you, a rather melodic voice that says, "Well, that is rather a portentous way to greet someone for the first time." And a man walks around the corner. He's quite tall, somewhat thin, maybe in his early 30s or so. He has a sort of reddish auburn-coloured goatee, and he's dressed rather elaborately for a member of the Ordo Magica. He has the traditional robes, but he also has some long-sleeved leather gloves on, and like a large sort of slouch hat, if you know what I mean, like there's sort of Renaissance slipped to one side, long, kind of a slight feather drooping down one side of it. Looks like quite a well-fashioned fellow. And he rounds the corner and gives kind of a lazy wave to Pegida, who kind of nods at him. She's still a little out of breath from having dashed down to let you in. And he says, "Visitors to the tower, most unusual."
We are actually, by some extent, on Ordo Magica business.
Oh, well, I should hope so. It's not a very good joke.
Yes, I'll no-sell that one.
He says, "Well, regardless, a pleasure always to meet people on the service of the Ordo Magica." He holds out kind of a gloved hand.
I'll take the hand. Steo of Thistlehold.
He says, "Cagliostro of Kastor." And
Also
yourself? He holds out a hand to you, which is notable. Not everyone will shake hands with a changeling.
I'll shake his hand. Askrai. Pleasure to meet you.
Yes. What service of the Ordo Magica have you been performing, if I might ask? Not one for this tower, I think.
No, for Thistlehold, we were sent to. Oh my God! What? It's been so long. I apologize. We have been in Davakar, seeking out finding the fate of an expedition to the tomb of the King Ibn. Oh, can you remember his name, Askrai?
I don't remember
That's
the
a good
king's.
question.
I do not remember the king's name, but
Hurian Low APAC.
Hurian Low APAC. Fascinating. Terrifying. Deadly.
Well, as many ventures in Davakar are, unfortunately. Well, then, it may not have been a task for this tower here, but you have my thanks for your services. And let me know if there's anything you wish to gain access to or be further illuminated about in this town of Kastor. Obviously, I am not the master of this tower myself, but I have duties that lend me some authority. Pegida leans forward and says, "Cagliostro is one of the surviving members of the council."
Oh, terrible business.
Most awful, and beyond, obviously, the emotional torment of seeing the demise or disappearance, at least, of some of my peers. Well, I have a lot of work to take care of.
I can imagine. I suppose it is fortunate that the town seems to have so many extra guardsmen at present.
Yes, a fortuitous circumstances. I believe the previous mayor had set up some kind of deal. Regardless, it's not something I'm particularly looking into at the moment. I leave that for the new mayor to determine and take care of the paperwork.
quite. I'm sure you are quite busy, but the only thing I would impose upon you, and indeed upon this tower, is if word could be sent back to Thistlehold via means magical or normal, that the expedition was returned successfully, and alas, a few survivors were recovered.
He nods and says, "Of course, I'm sure. Perhaps, Pegida, would you mind taking care of that? I wouldn't want to bother the old man with it, would you?" Pegida kind of shakes her head. "Well, if you would excuse me, gentlemen, Pegida, I must be on my way to the town hall." He kind of tightens up his gloves and strides past you down towards the ground floor.
Charming fellow.
Yeah. Well, good to see some of the council still standing at the very least.
So you carry on going up. This was around the second floor. As I said, there's only 4 floors on this. You reach the top floor, which is almost into it leads up to a doorway. Pegida lets you through, and the top floor is one large apartment. Essentially, appears to be Isocles' apartment. Over on one side is a large table with a lot of kind of alchemical and experimental equipment on it. There is a huge bookcase covered in scrolls and tomes of various kinds. There's a large peaked roof to it, which seems to have some kind of contraption and cog-like mechanisms around it, perhaps a means to opening it or something like that. And slung from this down below is a large brass telescope. There is also a 4-poster bed, which the drapes of which are some kind of old and slightly decayed and torn, and they are blowing quite wildly in the wind from a wide open window, in front of which is a desk covered in various papers, some of which have blown off onto the floor and are kind of scattering around just slightly. And sat at the desk is a man of considerable age. He has kind of whitish greyish hair that's balding slightly in the middle, and a whitish greyish beard, not a long beard, not like a wizard beard, more, well, like this kind of beard.
It is technically a wizard's beard because it is on a wizard.
That is true. But it's a beard that has the impression of having been quite well groomed and well kept and precise at some point in the past. But now it's a little bit more ragged. The man is sat at the desk, kind of staring out of the window, and doesn't seem to have noticed you entering.
We'll take my lead from our escort, I suppose.
Pegida kind of walks softly over to Isocles by the window and just rests her hand gently on his shoulder. He blinks a few times after a few seconds, turns and looks at him and says, "Oh, Pegida. Yes. I was not expecting any kind of meeting today." Pegida shakes her head and says, "No, you were asleep yesterday, Master, when I talked to these individuals, but I thought, since you have no appointments, perhaps you could speak to them. They have been traveling in Davokar on behalf of the Ordo Magica, and they requested to speak to you regarding that and other matters as well." Isocles kind of looks over at you, and you see kind of like his eyes are still quite. They look alert to you, and they look very. When I say piercing, I don't want you to confuse them with the piercing green. Like, he doesn't have green eyes; he has blue eyes, in fact. And they kind of, you feel kind of, how when some people look at you, they're just you feel almost fixed by their glance, kind of very authoritative look. He stands up from the desk, and when he was sat, you thought he was kind of like a smaller old man bent over, but he almost kind of unfolds himself to perhaps 6.5, nearly 7 feet tall. He evidently was a very large, powerful man. And he walks forward only with a slight creak in his step and a slight bend in his back, and holds out a hand in greeting and says, "Oh, always happy to meet people who fight for the purposes of the Order Magica, especially in such an unpleasant place as Davokar. Gentlemen." And he reaches out a hand to the both of you.
I will actually kind of take the hand with two hands and very deferential and go, "My Lord Isocles, had my children survived the war, they would have been astounded to know that I had met you. Your name is, of course, legend, as are the fires you started."
Well, it is certainly glad to know that some of them were for a good purpose, and not just for foolish experimentations of youth. Were you perhaps you have the stance of an infantryman, sir?
Yes, 112th spear.
112th. That fought in the northeast, yes?
Initially, yes, and then moved all across Albertor, as we all did, fleeing the death.
Yes, well, we're all better off here now, eh?
Quite.
He turns to Ascarai and says, "Yes. Sir, I don't think I caught your name."
I'm Ascarai from Thistlehold, as much as I am from anywhere. It's a pleasure to meet you. Stio has told me a lot about you.
He shakes your hand and says, "Ah, interesting. Over here further towards the east, away from Thistlehold, we don't get as many changelings here. Do you mind if I ask if you like the term? I had proposed a number of years ago, or was one of the proponents of the term half elf. Perhaps you dislike that term or prefer it. I would be interested to hear your thoughts."
I think, for my sakes, changeling is better. There are people, well, as much as changelings may have a hard time, I think reminding people of our association with the elves would not do us any favors.
Well, sadly, that is the case. Hopefully, the day comes when these things will not be a concern. But for now, I understand. Please, I'm an older man. Would you mind if we sit?
Absolutely.
He gestures over, and Pegida kind of drags two chairs out from the side near the area where he was experimenting at some point in the past. And he sits back at his desk and kind of glances out the window for a slightly too long amount of time, and then blinks and turns and looks around and says, "I'm sorry, Davokar, you say?"
Yes, specifically the tomb of King Curian was the business we were sent to investigate.
I see.
And is indeed the reason why we have...
Tomb of King Curian. Up by the river, yes?
Yes.
The colleagues at Thistlehold said they were sending... It was mentioned in some missives. Oh, that was you.
The initial expedition went missing. We were sent to investigate its fate, which was, as I'm sure you can imagine, somewhat grim.
That is unfortunate. Very unfortunate. And how long were you in the forest?
We have been 2 months, 3 months now, Ascarai, correct me. Sometimes it is very hard to tell.
I think
we have not just been in the forest, but spent a short period under it as well.
Yeah, I think
under
3
it,
months at the
in
least.
the tunnels.
Yes. Time was. We are glad to be alive, if I may be so frank. Many of the colleagues of the Order who went out on that expedition did not fare well at all. It is for that reason we would ask that you would send word back to the tower at Thistlehold via arcane means or normal, and let them know our fate and that we have information.
I'm sure it can be taken care of. Pegida, and she nods and says, "Yes, master. I will make sure. Yes." And then onwards, I suppose, for you back to Indaros.
No, I will return to Thistlehold. This is where I have settled.
Then why do you wish communication to be sent back to Indaros?
Oh, sorry, I said Thistlehold, not Indros, as
Oh,
that is the tower where we were dispatched from.
I could have sworn the missives came from Indros. Regardless.
On the matter of our arrival from Davokar, we did bring some objects of interest, which we figured you might have an interest in taking a look at.
If I can find the time, I certainly will do. What kind of objects might these be?
I will unsheath the spear and bring it towards him. This is the king's spear, which I traded for my own.
He takes a look at it and says, "A magnificent weapon, and presumably one you're well suited to, sir. You have the stance of an infantryman."
Yes, and quite some experience as well.
Yes, I fought in the war.
Yes, we're well aware of your amazing deeds and
Errand Pass.
pass.
I let those men down so badly. Far more died than they should have done. He starts to cry. You knew Errand Pass. It was the battle that made his name. Pegida leans forward and says, I think, Master, it might be time for a sleep. Isocles stands up, kind of tears running down his cheeks, and says, "Yes, perhaps so. I feel I let them down horribly." It's fine, Master. Just have a sleep. You'll feel better in the morning." He nods and lets her lead him over to the bed and kind of curls up in a slightly fetal shape on it.
I think we'll kind of stand up from the desk as well.
Yeah.
I'll stand up anyway.
Yeah, I'll probably make my way at least towards the exit of this room.
Pegida kind of stands up. She kind of makes sure you have your spear with you and says, "Just wait for me down the stairs away."
Sure. I will kind of pause about halfway across the room and turn back to turn back towards the bed and say, "For all the ones you let down, you saved 10."
You're not entirely sure he really hears or comprehends you.
Yeah, it was for me, Matt. Okay,
Sure. You walk out of the door and you hear it kind of. Pegida you hear basically Isocles kind of gently sobbing on the bed as you walk down a few stairs. Then after a few moments, more of a silence and a kind of heavy breathing sound. And Pegida walks out, tucking like a small bottle of some kind of fluid into a pouch on her robes and says, "Well, let's go look at your artifact, shall we?"
Yes, thank you.
She strides down the stairs, opens a door to a relatively empty room that just has kind of a novice tinkering away in the corner. Well, not tinkering, actually copying out from one tome to another in the corner. She walks over to a large table and says, "Here we go. Let me see."
Sure. I'll put the spear out. I'm pretty sure this one is not at all cursed, but it seems to be somewhat culturally significant.
Okay, I think her examining these artifacts is going to take a little time. So why don't we have a switcheroo, and let's bring Anton back on. Hello.
Hi.
And let's go back to that smaller one again. So you have proceeded up the road to the Sun Temple, and Semel has already walked inside. Was kind of walking a bit ahead of you the whole way, and is walking inside and is walking halfway down. There's a kind of central aisle. It's not set out like a church would be here. It's more in a kind of circular fashion. A sun priest preaches from the center of a circle, representing the sun. I just made that up, but it seems cool. But off to one side is a low, dark set of steps that leads downwards, presumably to the catacombs. Semel is heading for those. He's ignoring Belago, who doesn't notice anyway. Belago is moving around as he was yesterday, kind of tending to multiple people.
Yeah, I'll follow him down. That's fine.
So Semmel reaches the bottom of the stairs and kind of looks up and waits for you. And there are torches bracketed along kind of dark earthen tunnels, and he says, I'm sorry I snapped at you, Father. I need to be of help."
No, Samuel, I should apologize. You are a help, and it is right that you are here with me. Let's go together now.
All right.
And please lead the way.
He strides forward a few paces and kind of starts looking around, seem to be looking for perhaps signs of passing. The catacombs are not, obviously they haven't been here very long, being as Ambria was not settled that long ago. They are kind of rough earthen tunnels that are shored up with relatively new-looking wooden beams and planks. Every few paces, there is either a walled grave, so where someone has essentially literally been entombed in the earthen wall of the passageway, or a very small tomb where remains have been placed, perhaps, as is the custom of the Church of Prios after being cremated. All the way along, you see that there are kind of flowers and small gifts that people have left by the resting place of their loved ones. And Semmel is definitely kind of seems to be sort of looking around for kind of unusual things as he's proceeding through, and kind of he definitely knows where he is. He's rather confidently turning wherever there's a change in the passageway or whatever, but he's certainly looking around for something.
Yeah, I will follow his lead, maybe investigate in places nearby to him. I guess I'm, is there anyone else down here? Can we see any of the sisters?
No, there were only 2 sisters of Prios, I believe Belago mentioned in Kastor, and one of them got burned 3 years ago, and one of them was died.
Okay, so there's been no other replacements since.
No, it wouldn't be the duty, particularly of the sisters, to take care of these things. As you roam around, no, yes, you are not the only people in the catacombs. You pass one individual who's kind of knelt quietly by a small grave, and you pass what looks like a novice of the church who's basically like hammering nails. Tempting to be quiet, hammering nails to re-secure some of the overhead kind of bracing on the tunnel. He kind of gives you a kind of small, bored smile as you walk past.
I'll give him a friendly nod, and I'll carry on away from him and following Semmel, investigating. I guess I'm looking for signs that someone has, made an area of the catacombs like their own sort of personal space.
As Belago said, like she spends a lot of time in the catacombs. What you do notice as you're going through these winding passageways is that they're starting to become like you can hear the kind of hammering of that novice kind of receding in behind you, and you haven't spotted anyone else from a while. The torches here look like they're guttering slightly, like they're less kind of observed than the ones nearer, and you pass kind of like graves and tombs that seem to be marked, like some of them 10 years old. Like for Ambria, that's a while ago. So these are clearly the deeper part of the catacombs that aren't particularly tended anymore. Give me a vigilant roll at -5, please.
We need 8. Rolled 17.
Okay, you carry on walking for a while through the passageways, and Semmel, after about 15 minutes of this, and you're fairly sure you've doubled back on yourself and gone around in a number of areas. It's not a massive sprawling expanse, but it's certainly big enough to get lost in if you didn't know your way around. Semmel kind of stops and looks up at the wall and kind of pulls a guttering torch off it and leans down and tips it down to the ground and says, "Anton, look at this."
What is it? Pay it closer.
I think These are tracks, footsteps. But I've seen this them in this shape all around here. Look around. There are no flowers, no wreaths. These are people at their rest for years. This looks to me like this one individual has been moving through these passageways a lot. Maybe follow. Maybe it's Dada.
Did the tracks look fresh?
I think so. Why don't you give me a vigilant or cunning? I think whichever of yours is higher. Whichever of yours is higher. But take a -3 to it. I think.
Okay, need a 10. Rolled a 3.
You know what? You think they do look quite fresh.
Okay, yeah. Well, some they might be fresh. They certainly indicating that they are. Are they obviously kind of leading in a certain direction? Is there like a
They're scattered around, but there's definitely a set of them that are seem to be more fresh than others, and are heading further into the catacombs from where you are.
Okay, well, I'll sort of look in that direction and look back at Semel and indicate that that's the direction that we should go in.
Sure. So you carry on walking. Kind of, Semel has kept the torch just in case, and he's walking along with it, kind of as fast as he can, but being sensible and making sure to be able to follow them. You weave around the passageways of the catacombs again, fairly sure that you're doubling back and going there. As you hear the hammering again, coming closer and then receding as you go around certain other passageways. And you do this for, you actually struggle to perceive how long you're doing this for. Why don't you give me a cunning roll to try and figure out how long you're walking these passageways?
Need a 10, rolled a 16.
Okay, you have no idea. You could be down here for minutes or hours. It's very similar and somewhat. I don't want to tell you that Anton feels slightly, maybe creeped out or certainly. Wandering among the dead for such a long period of time in an unfamiliar place and unfamiliar circumstances is an intense experience.
I think it's not just that as well, though. It's being with potentially a sort of a grieving man who I don't know that very well. Who is sort of, or he's almost hell bent on finding the person that we believe to be dead, which adds an intensity to it. That it's a little unnerving.
Sure. You're walking around for a period of time. You can't determine how long. And then you emerge in what appears to be, you've passed through a number of, basically to call them chambers is an exaggeration. They're kind of, smallish openings where there are more graves or tombs laid out. You walk into the largest one of these you have seen. At the center of it are 5 very low stone tombs that don't have any names written on them, which is quite unusual. You emerge into this space. There are no torches on the walls. There were in the corridor leading up, and there are in a couple of other passageways leading off, but none in here. Although there are brackets on the walls. Semel kind of looks around in slight confusion. It's obviously much darker and more difficult to find the tracks in here. Wanders over to the wall and places them in a bracket. You notice that while the 5 tombs do not have kind of carvings on them, one of them appears to have had objects left on it.
Okay. Well, go and have a look at those creepy objects.
You go over and have a look. On this tomb are some slightly wilting flowers. So they're not fresh, but they're, fresh enough to be wilting. And a small triangle woven together out of kind of lengths of maybe catgut or something like that, and rat bones. You have a lore master, don't you? Why don't you give me a cunning test?
I need. I fail. I roll 18.
Yeah, something kind of tickles the back of your brain about this symbol, but you can't place it.
Okay.
As you're kind of kneeling over and taking a look at this, you are. It's not a sudden awareness. It's more a slight growing sensation. This chamber is getting colder.
Oh God. What's Semmel doing?
He's sort of watching you and says, what do you think it is, Father?
I don't know what it is, Semmel, but I'm beginning to feel rather uncomfortable down here.
His breath comes out as steam. There is a low hissing noise coming from all around you. You feel like it was on the edge of your awareness before, and almost kind of a thing that your brain was kind of blocking out, and now it's loud enough that it's registering with you, and it's growing in intensity.
Okay, Semmel, let's go. Take a torch. Go.
His eyes are wide, and he's kind of slowly, almost achingly stepping back from where he's looking at the center of the chamber.
Can I see the center of the chamber?
You can if you were kind of hunched over this tomb. You can if you turn around and look, for sure.
I don't know if I want to. Yeah, okay, I'll look.
There is what seems to be a human, faint human ethereal shape coalescing together over one of the tombs at the central of the chamber, a kind of translucent, whitish, greyish form that's slowly coming together into a human-like shape. As you watch and kind of take, I would imagine, a sudden breath in at the shock of this, the cold washes inside you and into your lungs, and you find yourself, you're perfectly capable of movement, just not very fast. As you watch one of the arms of the human-like form starts to raise into a slightly threatening claw-like gesture. Let's go back to the others. So it's a couple of hours later, and obviously we've got nothing else to be concerned about. So Pegida,
yeah, I wonder how Antom's doing. He's doing great.
So what object Pegida is quite confidently determined, with some cross-referencing and examination, has determined the properties of your items for you. So what would you like to learn about first?
Ooh.
The mummy hand.
Okay, you can go first.
The mummy hand. Okay. Pegida says that as far as she can determine, this has two rather unusual and unpleasant properties. One of which is essentially, she says it has a kind of enforced prophetic quality, whereby if an owner of this, and she refers to it as an amulet, if the owner of the amulet masters the ability of commanding others, they can prophesize doom against their enemies, and therefore reduce the enemy's capabilities. The other ability is essentially one of sort of mystical sorcerous luck, whereby the owner, with successful use of this mystic item, could enforce some kind of second chance at some kind of task they are performing, perhaps with dice. It goes without saying, by the way, that all these things, as with all artifacts in the game, would come with a temporary corruption roll.
Of course, yeah.
That will be the case of all of them if they have any power to them.
Okay.
She also says that she believes that this mummified hand is spiritually linked to something or someone, and would advise perhaps determining that before you choose to bind yourself to it in any way.
I would ask how she would recommend we go about doing that, determining.
She
If
says
there's any
that
clue.
the best thing you might be able to do is to go to some kind of expert in spiritual linking and rituals that link between things, and try and see if you can persuade them or pay them enough to perform some kind of magic to trace it back to whatever is pinioned on the other end of this link.
Okay.
Because she says she thinks it's a link that cannot be easily broken.
Fair enough.
What is the next thing you want looked at?
I want to know more about my spear, which is not a magical item.
It's a fancy spear.
But didn't you say you had the proper name for it?
I don't think Pegida will have the proper name for it. I think you need someone with a bit more expertise to name it. But she confirms that it is merely an extremely well-made spear.
I will scoff if she uses those actual words.
She can tell you it's very old, and it is definitely Symbaric, but you knew that.
Okay. Look, I'm still not telling her about my big chest of gold, and I'm not getting her to identify that. So, so we got so Irfons, I suppose, would have the next shout.
Yeah. So this throwing axe that he has secured, essentially once it is bound, it has properties of kind of maybe spiritual aspects of fire and lava bonded into it, and it can be if bound, it can be heated up essentially by the owner to form a glowing, burning edge that can sear through armor. Also, it's she says that it's a rather more advanced use, but she thinks it could be bound in order to be flung and returned in some fashion.
Interesting.
What's next?
Do you want to do the cloak?
Yeah, cloak.
It says that there's a cloak and there's Antom's book as well, right? Antom's codex. But the cloak, she refers to this as or perhaps the Haganor skin. A rainbow shimmering cloak of lindworm skin that's said to come from a serpent slain near the columns of Haganor, at the time when the column was still sparked with gold and silver. It still holds some mystical powers. It can lend the master a voice which enthralls the listener like the hypnotic power of a lindworm, or a commanding, thundering voice turning even the most resilient of warriors into an obedient slave. Aside from that, the cloak provides its carrier a +1 d4 bonus in armor. You knew that already.
Nice.
And that does not involve binding. She does, however, very much warn against wearing this Haganor skin in front of a lindworm unless you want to get attacked by the lindworm. Lindworms are of various intelligence, and she says, perhaps understandably, not particularly keen on seeing the skins of their of other lindworms being worn by people.
Yes.
She thinks she has heard it told that it is a theory that this provokes memories of among lindworms of the humiliating times when Symbaroum's princes hunted their ancestors for amusement, because it is something regularly portrayed in Symbaric carvings.
Well, good advice on that front.
And finally, the codex. This one's quite straightforward. It contains full and detailed instructions for 2 different mystic rituals, which would make it very easy to learn and perform them. And those are... Why is it not in this section with the other stuff? Come on.
Oh, I love asking Matt to look stuff up. It never fails to be an absolute delight.
Especially when we're right at the end. Okay, yeah. She says that the rituals are forms of the rituals commonly known as possess and break link. She says that a more powerful version of the ritual break link would be just the kind of thing you might need in order to establish the links with the mummified hand.
Sardonically, I will say, well, at least we got that's technically us even, given that we set off on this after losing that one book of Break Link.
You did, yeah. Hey, maybe you can just give it to the Order Magica and things will be fully even. I'm sure Anton will be fine with that. Just
Yeah. Well, we don't need to worry about him.
having
He's
his one
dead.
treasure taken away.
I'm sure,
Sure.
Anton will love to know what's in his book. I can't wait to give it to him.
Earthons is eyeing up his throwing axe and kind of tossing it gently and looks quite pleased with himself. Pegida says kind of her hands are covered in some kind of protective ointment that she used while handling them, and she kind of is brushing it down on almost like a set of leathery, like a leather apron she's worn while she does this, and says, "Well, that's it, I'm afraid. I'll make sure the message is sent to Thistlehold. Is there anything else I can do for you?"
I think that's all from me. Probably go and get some lunch.
All right. Well, if you need any help around town, just don't be afraid to come ask. I won't lie. This tower is riddled with internal politics and strife of the usual Order Magica type. It bores me senseless, and talking to outsiders is a highlight of my day.
Well, I suppose it'll make a nice break from all of the external politics and strife that seem to be troubling the town at the moment.
Well, we try and keep clear of that here. Obviously, apart from Cagliostro, poor bastard.
Yeah.
Well, I will see you perhaps another day then.
Absolutely. Thank you for your help.
She walks you down to the doorway and lets you out into the. Oh God, I can't describe it again. The courtyard of the Order Magica
with a perfectly normal shape, right?
Perfectly normal shape. Before you take an action, let's swap back over again, eh?
Good luck, Mike. Please don't die.
We've had the warm-up cliffhanger, now for the proper one. So, Anton, what are you doing? This thing is coalescing more fully in front of you. It is definitely humanoid now, almost like a negative of a human, hanging there in the air. The hissing noise is rising to a more like a distorted. It sounds like static. Obviously, Anton isn't particularly aware what static is, but that's what it sounds like, a kind of shrieking static all around this chamber. It is starting to drift forward towards you. It is not exactly identical, but you can't help but recall the thing the treasure hunters in the forest referred to as the Omalcoon.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm just going to scream, shout, and back away. Although I guess it's like backing away through treacle.
Yeah, it's more, you're not frozen, you feel cold, but it's more like your muscles are kind of slightly locked as you try and back away. You can see that Semmel is afflicted with the same thing. The being kind of drifts wrongly through the air towards you both. And as it does so, it's reaching out. You can see that its hands are sort of twitching slightly, and the fingernails there are no fingernails. It has claws in a monstrous sense, and as you watch in horror, the features on the face, which were somewhat kind of anonymous and faint, almost blur and shift with a kind of mother of pearl texture over it until it has Semmel's face. Again, you remember the Omalcoon doing something similar to that. I believe it gained Athenaea's face briefly. Perhaps Athenaea? Or perhaps one of the treasure hunters, I can't remember. But either way, it did that. Also, can you give me a vigilant roll, please, at -2?
Need 11. Rolled 19.
Okay, never mind. So, can you also... no, actually, that's fine. Semmel blinks slightly, turns towards you and takes a step towards you. He's drawing his dagger.
Oh, okay. Well, I will...
His eyes are blank.
Okay. this is all happening rather fast. It's quicker for me to draw my dagger in combat as well than presumably get my flail out.
It is,
right?
because it has the quality short, which means it can be drawn for free. So yes, definitely.
Yeah. I don't want to use my dagger on Semmel, but like I want to have something in my hand, and I want to sort of reach out to try and grab his hand, which is going
absolutely. Can you give me, as you're doing that, you do that successfully, but then can you give me a resolute roll at -5, please?
Oh God, what's my resolute? Resolute is 13, so I need an 8. 16. Oh man.
Okay. You are you have the dagger out, but you are incapable of doing anything more. The rising, shrieking static noise that almost seems to be resolving in your ears into a human screech. Your friend coming towards you. You can't take this. You drop to one knee and kind of are only really capable of moving very slowly back as Semmel is approaching you. The floating being. Kind of moving into your frame of vision over his shoulder, reaching kind of forward over him, almost like it's puppeting him with those claws. And then a voice saying something. You're not quite sure what. And the spirit, this horrific being, blinks out of existence. Semmel kind of what? A woman's voice from the side passage says, "I'm sorry about that. He usually leaves me alone."
What just happened? Semmel?
Into the light walks a woman wearing kind of a long, dark cloak and a hood. She throws it back. A relatively young woman, long dark hair, piercing green eyes. And I think we'll leave it there. That was fun. Lovely little cliffhanger. Let's have everyone back on. As per usual, thanks to everyone. Thanks to the stream manager, John. Thanks to my lovely players here. Thanks to everyone for watching. If you've got any comments or questions, pop them into the chat and we'll flag them up to discuss for you. As that's happening, let's do some fun old promo times. We've got a bunch of links down below. We've got links to our YouTube and to our Twitch. You're watching on one, why not check out the other? We've got links to our social media, to our Discord, where you can join and talk to us about all things roleplay, to our Patreon, where you can get tier rewards like character creation videos and patron Discord access. And even if you're a big old spender, get me to run some private games for you. We run weekly games Monday through to Wednesday. Monday is Call of Cthulhu. Tuesday is Vampire the Masquerade 5th edition. Wednesday is Symbaroum. They all start at 8 o'clock BST. But it's worth noting that Vampire and Symbaroum are taking next week off. I'm taking next week off and I run those games. We also have monthly one-shots on the first Saturday of every month. We've done Alien and Troika and Merkborg. Not Merkborg, Merkborg. Which that one just happened this last Saturday and was a lot of fun, actually. The VODs for those are over on our YouTube. Check them out. And then we'll be running another one on May 1st, but we're not sure what yet. And breathe. So, and I don't think we've got any... Oh, yes, we do. DeBoy1994. Thank you very much for your follow. 7 minutes ago. I must have checked 8 minutes ago. So, yeah. Anything from chat, Jonathan?
Ooh.
Is Cagliostro the name in the written scenario? Yes, it is. I think, unless I've misread it out. No, it is, yeah. Cagliostro.
They have... Ambrian naming is just a little strange.
They do seem to just throw in, like, weirdly sort of different historical feeling names every now and then. Like, Cagliostro is a name I'd totally go, that's like a Renaissance
Italian,
whatever,
maybe.
yeah. But yeah, it's a fun name though. And Isocles obviously sounds Greek.
Yeah.
But yeah. I actually welcome it though, because I find the Ambrian naming scheme a bit repetitive, I have to say. Especially when it's like every Ambrian woman ends in A. It's like, oh well, that's a fast track to everyone sounding the same. But there we go. Yeah.
Well, it's Anton, it's Symbaroum. He's perpetually on a 10.
Perpetually 10. Yeah, I won't lie. Here's a peek behind the GM screen for you. If you were there as a group, I was going to let that combat run for a round or two first. But I was like, no, you're fucked. You're absolutely fucked if I carry on this combat.
I thought we were finally going to get rid of our priest.
Who will rid us of this turbulent priest? Yeah.
Right, that's it. My second character's another priest.
So many priests. So many priests.
Comes back as Keller.
Oh God.
Yeah, he's definitely there. Available as a side character. It's a boomerang axe. It's actually better than a boomerang axe. But when I'm describing like the powers of mystic items, I don't want to go into like, when you use them, that's when you see what they're really like. But I will say it's better than a boomerang axe.
Earthlands. Yeah, good choice.
Your second character is 2 priests. Yeah. 2 priests on top of each other in a long trench coat.
And
Maybe-
Troika.
Maybe that's what Keller's been all along, and it's why he needs so many cloaks.
It's
He's
totally a
got a lot of
character.
Right, my next goal is to convince Sam and another player to also have priest characters, and it will be Steo and a troop of priests just paging around.
All priest action. All priest action. I thought I saw something back in the chat that I thought I'm definitely bringing that one up, but I can't. Oh, where's the tabletop? Yeah, as I said, in our imagination.
Someone in the chat joining us from Germany, right?
There is, but that wasn't necessarily what I was. I think it was this. There's no way we avoid a fist fight between Anton and Semmel.
I'm kind of here for it. I'm kind of here for it.
Yeah, priest fight. Yeah.
The only reason that I didn't want Semmel with me is because he came across like a bit of a wild card when we were at
totally.
the Annex.
Yeah.
And I just thought he's going to get me into a lot of trouble, and he's going to make me look bad in front of the other priests.
I think the problem with wild cards is that if you're like, I don't want you here, you're a wild card, their reaction will usually be, I don't care, because they're a wild card. So, no.
It was a very civilized.
You had your chance with Persuade.
It was a very civilized little disagreement there. That's probably the most adult argument I've witnessed in like a month.
I wish all my arguments were that civil, certainly. So yeah, there we go. I think that's everything from chat. As I said earlier, remember that next week both this and Vampire are on a break, but we'll be we'll be back the week following that. So the next Symbaroum will be on the 21st of April, usual time, 8:00 BST. We'd love to have you there for the next episode of the Bell Tolls for Kastor, which, considering it's a story I initially read and was like, I'm not really getting this, and then I reread it and went, oh no, actually, you know what? I'm actually really enjoying running it now, with some little tweaks and additions and stuff. So yeah, cool. All right, thanks for joining us, folks. Thanks to players, thanks to Stream Manager, and we'll see you in 2 weeks' time for more Symbaroum. Goodbye. Take care.
Bye-bye.